We've somehow acquired several fairly rare shrubs or plants that we're going to be planting in this video. We were, I think, you know, if you looked around this garden, I would say, you know, 3/4 of it, you know, the things that are in this garden you could get at Home Depot or your local garden center or wherever. And then there's some percentage of this garden, let's call it 2/3 very commercially available, 1/3 you would probably have to go to some sort of mail order company or specialized place in some way or another to get. But there are not really any kind of ultra rare things. There's a few things that they're one of a kind things that we're working on or whatever, but there's not any like super rare plants, but a few of these that are being in this video are that way. I won an auction the other night that you're going to see, and I won't tell you how we acquired each of these, but this is one that I've talked about a few times over the years, and this is the mountain dove Daphnophyllum. This plant, the original ones there were 3 variegated Daphnophyllum that were brought into the country at the same time, and they reside over at Juniper Level Botanic Garden. So the mountain dove Daphnophyllum there is like a little small tree in the garden. The one at that J.C. Ralston Arboretum is more like a very full, kind of 6 foot tall, 4 foot wide shrub at this point. Incredible variegation on this plant. You would look at this plant right here and go, why isn't it in every garden? It's not invasive, it's not problematic, it's strikingly beautiful, right? Well, the reason is it can't be rooted. Most of the woody shrubs, and if I was standing next to one, I'd break off a branch right now, are easy to, in fact, stay right there, Steph. I'm just gonna break a piece off this viburnum. This Shasta viburnum right here, this is new growth this year. I didn't break it down quite as far as I would like to have, but I can take this piece right here, I can take this new growth out of it, and I can root that. That's this year's growth, slightly hardened off. I just took my nail and exposed a little bit of the green underneath. I could dip this in some rooting hormone, and bam, I can make a new Shasta viburnum. Lots of woody shrubs are like that. This one will not root. It just won't. People have tried for 30 years to get it to root. So it had to be grafted, and then went through the process of, you know, there are only a couple nurseries that have this plant. It also takes a specialized graft. So on top of everything else, you know, it even is high-end grafting technique to get them to take. We had this Miss Kim lilac in this spot that died last year, and I don't know, we really honestly don't know the reason why. You don't always know the reason why something dies, but part of it died and then the rest of it died, and I just took it out in a video. As you're watching this should be yesterday's video removing an old shrub. I dug it out of the ground here. I said in that video to make sure if you do end up with a hole, because I ended up with a hole here, to use soil from your own property somewhere if you can. If I dump a big bag of potting soil into this spot, it's just going to end up as a wet. Every time it rains, water is going to rush to that spot, and it's going to be super wet, and that I don't want. Because unless I'm growing Venus flytraps or Sarracenia or pitcher plants or something like that. But this will be the easiest digging I've ever done in the garden, that's for sure. These are in, this is kind of a quart pot. Fairly well rooted. Not a hard plant to grow. So it's an interesting, you know, there are plants that I would call nursery plants that are really easy to grow in a nursery space, and then I don't see them out in the world, like millions of them get sold kind of plants. And then there are plants that are actually very easy in the ground that are incredibly difficult in a nursery. And that would be, this Daphnophyllum would definitely fit that. This one really wants kind of part shade conditions. The main thing I have to be careful of is this side of the garden we tend to ignore. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind sometimes, and we don't necessarily water it as well. So now that we have something over here that's quite valuable to us, we definitely will do that. This one's been on the list for a long time of a plant that I always seek out when I go to the J.C. Ralston Arboretum just to look at, because it's such a beautiful variegation, such a stable variegation, and it's just such a striking plant in the garden. So make sure you're following along with the channel and you can see how this Daphne-phyllum mountain dove performs this season. This one was in a video last week down at Juniper Level Botanic Garden. This is Little Prospect Witch Hazel, the variegated witch hazel. And so after 40 years of being in this business of transporting plants in pickup trucks and in box trucks and in cars and in every kind of vehicle you could imagine, got this plant, put it in the car, put it in the back of the car, went shopping. And we were just gonna go in one store and walk back out, and ended up walking for a while and came back, and this one it was so much new foliage on it, especially during the spring. If you're plant shopping during the spring, you have to be super careful. That really new, super fresh foliage on there can be burned, you know, as soon as the car hits 100 degrees. You know, you can burn some of that new, super fresh foliage. If you're buying them in the summer, late summer or fall, and that, you know, the leaves have hardened off on the plants a bit more, they're much tougher overall. But always, when I was putting something in the pickup truck in the spring, in the back of the pickup or in the car, you have to make sure that they're well protected and cool and stay cool during that period of time. So we lost about half the leaves. Well, 40% of the leaves off of it. It'll be totally fine. It's a free pruning, right? That's what I say sometimes when something goes wrong. It was a free pruning, but it'll flush back out from that. This is a variegated. This was a sport of another witch hazel, and it's grafted. It probably somewhere around 6 feet in height, something like that, ultimately in this spot. This is in our native garden, and there's an entire playlist for the native garden, and there's a video coming up in the next few days where we've added several things over here, and we have several more things to add. This video happens to be some rare plants that some are native and some are not. You're about to see one more in just a second. This wood chip area out here, every plant that we've put out here so far has been kind of a woody shrub, and it's hit the ground running without any problem at all. We have our perennials, herbaceous stuff back here that we have kind of in a holding pen over there, and I thinned the wood chips out quite a bit before I planted them. This thing was barely rooted. Sometimes if you pull something out of a container, I'm gonna have to keep a close eye on this one because it just didn't have much roots on it at all. If you pull something out of a container and all the soil falls off, which is basically what happened with this one, sometimes it may be best to put it back in the container and let it stay in the container for a few more weeks. See if you can get a little more root mass on it, especially. So for you in the north, as I say this, May seems like spring to you. You know, by this time in May, we've already had several 90-degree days here in Raleigh and several more coming up, I'm sure. So planting something that barely has any roots on it in this kind of heat can be an issue. So again, I'm going to keep an eye on it. But this one gets lightly scented, fragrant flowers as you would expect on a witch hazel. Much smaller growth, much slower growing because it's variegated. A lot of variegated plants are going to be much slower. But let's move to number 3. It's kind of interesting planting in these wood chips because it appears that I'm planting really deep. And if you came out here and actually looked at the plants, they are deep, but they're deep in the wood chips because the wood chips are going to break down really rapidly, but they're up above the soil. Okay, so I'm planting them high above when I get down to the soil, I'm mounding them up above the soil. And then, again, these wood chips are gonna drop. So anything that looks like it's low right now is going to be high later because this is 6 inches of wood chips minimum. It's a little deeper in a couple spots over here where the actual pile was, you know, where you never get it quite as thin as everywhere else. Really excited about these little wax myrtles here. This is our native wax myrtles in miniature. So these are 2 ground cover wax myrtles, hoping these make it to market in a reasonable amount of time. We saw these, the person who gave these to us, you know, they were on a bank as ground cover, like you would have a ground covered juniper. That's how they were growing, 1.5 foot off the ground, something like that. So rooting for this plant to get to market. This is a great native where we think of wax myrtles as becoming really small trees with a few, you know, there's a few named varieties out there that are a little bit lower than that, much lower than that. But this is an actual, just a ground cover. had these in the vegetable garden, and we were storing them through the winter time. And when I dug them out over there, that vegetable garden soil is so loose because all that compost, a lot of the soil fell off of them. So I had to be delicate with these, getting them transplanted over here, and I'm gonna have to keep an eye on them for a couple of weeks. Luckily, I got good consistent moisture in this. It's not wet over here, but the 6 inches of wood chips is keeping it just kind of consistently moist. So every single thing we've planted over here so far, without exception, has really jumping very quickly. Things are flowering better that have been moved over here, that kind of thing. So I don't think it'll be a problem, but do keep that in mind. That's 2 in a row that I planted over here with very small root systems on much larger plants. This is a baptisia that's always been super interesting to me. This is a southeastern native. It's hardy in zones 6 to 9, or is it 6 to 10 even? 6 to 10. So a lot of folks watching can actually grow this baptisia, but look, it has the hair, it has the blue color and kind of the hairy leaves that we would expect of species out in the West, you know, from Texas, you know, and further west. So it has that look of a southwestern native. Most of the area that this plant is native to in southern Georgia has been destroyed by pine plantations, basically, where folks are farming pine trees and basically straight rows. So a lot of its, you know, area has been taken away. And I think you can't ship this plant state by state. So it can be rooted or divided here, you know, but it has to stay in the area. They don't allow people to take them across state lines and that kind of thing for fear that people would be digging them out of the wild. Luckily, they're in some nursery operations, like Plant Delight sells this plant, and you can get it, and we can make it less rare in the world. It gets yellow flowers on a little raceme much later than a lot of the other baptisias. A lot of our other baptisias have bloomed out at this point, and this one typically is a little later in the summer. It's also a little slow to emerge in the spring, so if you end up with this plant, make sure some of our perennials come bolting out of the ground really super fast. Like our Amsonia is already 3.5 feet tall over there. We've got salvias that are in full bloom, 3.5 to 4 feet literally already, you know, and these emerge kind of late. It forms this perfect little low mound where, you know, over at the garden at juniper level, you know, they're maybe 2 feet tall in the, you know, and 3 or 4 feet wide. So it can get, you know, pretty wide in time. But I've always loved this plant. It's such a unique southeastern native because, again, it looks like a southwestern native or a Mexican native plant because it's prepared for the drought. So this one is good in very, you know, very dry spaces, but very adaptable, you know, overall to our gardens as well. Number 5 is a plant that I won in an auction the other night that actually was grown by Ted Stevens down at Nursery Caroliniana. We went down there, gosh, probably been close to 3 years or something since we went down there. I'd like to go down there again and see some of the incredible plants that he has in his collection down there. And, you know, you can go over to their website and see some of the super, super interesting plants. Got an incredible collection of osmanthus, but he's also got a lot of other really interesting plants. And this is one of them. This is a Camellia japonica called Bonton. And if you look on the end of each leaf, or right underneath each leaf, there's a little trumpet shaped appendage that comes out from the bottom of it. There is another variety, I think quercifolia or something, that has the little fish tail that comes off the end of it. So this one's a little bit different than that. But you see, it's every leaf develops right from underneath the leaf. White flowers, yellow stamens, typical Camellia japonica behavior outside of having that really weird, you know, extra thing on the end of each leaf. Part shade is going to be best for it, but I'm going to put it on the back line back here. This is a space that when we plant something new, we have to make sure that we're thinking about watering it later. But I have gotten the soil to the point. Every time we've ever gotten extra wood chips, you know, we'll get wood chips, we'll do all the paths, we'll do everything we need, and then any extra I've been putting back here. And now the soil is quite a bit better. Plants are definitely performing better in it now. This is I don't know what size container that is, maybe 3.5 inches, 4 inches. It's small, pretty small container. what a super, super interesting Camellia japonica. One of the biggest things I enjoy in gardening, you can probably tell, because I get excited when we find something or acquire something that we've seen in a garden here or there over the years, because we'll run into something and then I always say it takes like 3 times running into something to really learn it. You know, you'll see it once and then you'll forget about it, and then you'll see it again and go, have I seen that thing before? And then you'll see it a 3rd time, and then all of a sudden, you know, then it kind of sticks in your head at that point. And it puts it on my list of things that I would like to have here in the garden, or, you know where I can go and admire it at least. And so some of those things in this video are those plants. And so it's nice to have them here in the garden where we can show them off and talk about them. But then again, we're probably nearing especially with the new plants over here in the native garden, we're probably approaching or over 400 different plants in this garden at this point. So if you're coming to the open garden, you can see that. And again, 75% of them you can just find, and 25% of them are just fun pieces to talk about that are one of a kinds or something unusual that you can see here in the garden. The tickets are over on our website. The open garden is June 20th and 21st, 2025. If you're watching this video sometime in the future, it'll be a different date in a different year. But the tickets are over on our store in our website if you're interested in coming and seeing some of the unusual things here in the Raleigh garden. Thanks for watching.